Hello everyone, welcome back to Sydney and welcome to my study again. What I'd like to do in today's video is share with you 3 books that felt like time travel. So the experience of reading them felt like I had traveled through time. Now they're all historical fiction novels. There's 3 of them. They're all historical fiction and they're all set in the 16th century. So they're all set in Tudor England. They're wonderfully evocative, immersive, beautiful reads. And I want to tell you just a little bit about each of them. Please let me know if you've read any of them. I'm going to start with one of my all-time favorite books, and it is called A Traveller in Time by Alison Utley. Let me know in the comments whether you've read this gorgeous book. It's actually a young adult novel, but it is so perfect for adults as well. That doesn't make any difference. And the story is about a girl called Penelope who lives in London in the 20th century. And she travels to her great aunt and uncle's home in Derbyshire. She goes there like for holidays. And they live on a farmhouse called Thacker's. Now, I don't want to give everything away in case you haven't read it, but it is a time slip novel. So Thacker's has a secret. The house is actually a time portal. And so Penelope, when she visits, she gets to have some really wonderful adventures in Tudor England. She also gets to meet her Tudor ancestors. And that family are involved in, now if you know your Tudor history, you're going to recognize this, the Babington plot. So basically a plot to try to put Mary, Queen of Scots, on the throne instead of Elizabeth I. So the farmhouse is a fictional one. Thacker's isn't real, but it is in fact inspired by a real place, and that was called Dethick Manor, and that was a home of the Babington family, and it was not too far away from a place called Wingfield Manor, which is where Mary, Queen of Scots was imprisoned for a time. So Penelope, when she travels to her great aunt's home, she gets to pop in and out of Tudor England, and it is just one of the most beautiful, immersive, evocative stories that I've actually ever read. I love it. You are completely immersed in it, so it feels like you're traveling back and forth with Penelope, which is what I absolutely love. And her descriptions of the farmhouse are so atmospheric, especially the kitchen scenes. I love the kitchen scenes. And what is wonderful is that I have loved this book for many years. I obviously knew Thacker's wasn't real, but then I discovered that in fact part of the Babington home, more the outbuildings, not the main house where the family would have lived, was turned into an Airbnb or a B&B, sorry. And I was able to stay there. So I stayed there, I think it was like 2016 or 2017. I stayed overnight. Oh my goodness, it was just as I imagined Thacker's would be. Huge fireplaces in the kitchen. The Tudor fireplaces still survived, and it was a stone building. It was like a portal in time as well. I don't think it's still actually opened, unfortunately, as a B&B. I tried to click on the link that I remember booking with, but it doesn't seem to be functioning anymore. But I'll try and put some pictures up so you can see what I mean. But also I wanted to tell you a little story about this book. So I had a different version of it that I took with me on that visit. And then I bought this, I think on eBay or something like that, some online bookstore or one of those places. And it didn't say anything that it had an inscription in it. So I was so surprised, so pleasantly surprised when I opened it to find that it's signed by the author. It's signed by Alison Utley. So it actually says, Stanley and Jane Burton, To Travel in Time to Another Century, from Alison Utley. And it says for Christmas, and I thought it said 1962, but I actually see that it says 1562. So it's so wonderful. So I was so happy to have a signed copy of one of my all-time favorite Tudor novels. If you have not read this, please, please, please get yourself a copy. You are going to absolutely love A Traveller in Time. And if, like me, you absolutely love time slip stories, I'm obsessed with time slip stories. I always want to actually have a time slip happen to me, but it hasn't occurred yet. But stranger things have happened, I guess. So yeah, if you are a fan of those dual timeline, but done so beautifully, because of course it is a novel for younger people, so it's not too complicated, and the characters are just developed so beautifully, and the scenes, oh my goodness, the descriptions, you just feel like you're in Thacker's farmhouse with Penelope and her family. Highly, highly recommend this one. Now the next one is equally magnificent, and it is Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. Let me know if you've read this one. So I originally listened to this in Audible, because I like to go for walks and I like to listen to something, and the narrator was incredible, but also the story is completely immersive. You just feel like you are there. I don't know how much you know about this book, but this is inspired by the life of Hamnet, who was in fact William Shakespeare's son. Now, very little is known about him, but this novel is just, oh my goodness, I don't even know how to describe how magnificent it is. I was completely immersed. Again, it felt as though the details that are included, the author must have seen Tudor England. It's like, did they time travel? So brilliant. It had me in absolute tears more than once. It does have some pretty heartbreaking scenes in it. There's a real immediacy about it, like you feel like you are there immersed with them, and it's because of how it's written. For example, Hamnet scuffs his boots in the grit of the yard. He can see the remains of a game he and Judith had been playing not long ago. The lengths of twine tied to pine cones to be pulled and swung for the kitchen cat's kittens. Love it. And the other wonderful, wonderful thing about this book is that, although obviously I knew that it was about Shakespeare's son when I started listening to it or reading it, Shakespeare's not mentioned throughout. And what I mean by that is the name Shakespeare. So you know there's a father who's a poet and a playwright and who moves to London for work, but it doesn't name William Shakespeare. So, or any of the Shakespeares actually, you're just immersed in the story of a family who have certain things happen to them and who happen to be in Elizabethan England. So it's so wonderful. So if you have not read Hamnet, this was my, whatever year it was that I read it, it was 2020, was it? Possibly around there. It was my absolute favorite book of the year. So add it to your list. And the third one, I'm sure, is one that we are all very familiar with, and that is this big book, Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. Now, I can't talk about immersive novels and novels that feel like time travel, of course, without mentioning Hilary Mantel's work. To me, this woman found a way to time travel. I don't know how she could bring Tudor England to life in such spectacular detail without having seen it. Is just mind-boggling. She was an absolute genius, I have no doubt about that. So Wolf Hall, I'm sure, as you know, is told from the perspective of Thomas Cromwell. So it's the first book of her trilogy, and if you've seen the series Wolf Hall, we're about to get the new series, hopefully very soon, based on the last book, I believe it is, in the trilogy, or maybe it's the second and last book. So I'm so excited for that. I cannot wait. But this, how did she do it, everyone? It's just, it feels like you are there with her and her characters. The descriptions are just incredible, and the level of detail. So actually many years ago, my sister used to work for a weekly magazine here in Australia, and she actually got to interview her. This was, gosh, I don't even know how long ago this was now. And I remember she said to her, reading your books feels like time travel. How do you do that? Do you have like a psychic connection with the characters or the story? Because it is so incredible. And Hilary responded that it was all down to the research. The level of research that she does, she just immerses herself in every kind of, primary source that she can get her hand on, secondary sources, completely immerses herself, and then this incredible writing comes out of that research. And of course, she put in a lot of work into her research. She was very serious about sticking as closely to the story. She's talked about that many times, and it works so well in this book. I know she said something like she doesn't agree with the writers of the Tudors, as in the Showtime series, because they veered from real history quite spectacularly. So she thinks that the key is stick as close to the story as possible. Then when there are gaps, because of course we don't know everything, there is the writer's job to come up with a plausible story, a story that's going to fit with the rest of the framework of the book and the facts, I suppose, that we know. And boy, oh boy, she just does that so brilliantly. It was like the time travel feel was so intense for me reading Wolf Hall, in particular this first book, that it almost felt like the characters were speaking to me. It no longer felt like they were two-dimensional, flat characters on a page. It felt like they actually stepped out of the book and were speaking with me. I know that sounds really weird. Don't send medical help. I'm fine. I was just so in her story that it was like I wasn't reading anymore. It was like I was watching this unfold, and the characters were actually real people talking to me and telling me their story. So if you haven't read Wolf Hall or Hilary Mantel, highly recommend it. So they're my 3 books. I want to hear what books you were completely lost in, regardless of what time period. These just all happen to be set in Tudor England. But I do, in fact, read a lot of other novels and from lots of time periods. For example, I'm listening to an incredible novel right now by Hannah Kent. It's called Burial Rites. I know I'm really late to it. It came out years ago. But it is incredible. It's set in the 19th century in Iceland. So imagine how atmospheric it is. And I'm loving every single word. So if you're looking for something great to listen to, again, beautifully narrated. So Hannah Kent, and it's called Burial Rites. It's on Audible or wherever you get your audiobooks from, but that's a great one to listen to. Oh, we're getting a bit dark in here, everyone. Sorry about that. Sunshine's going. It is actually quite a spring-like day, even though we're still in winter. But you can see I've got a dress on, so the sense that spring is in the air is very, very strong now. So I'm loving it. Love it. So recap: A Traveller in Time by Alison Utley. The version that I've got has got cute little illustrations as well, which I love. Hamnet. You can see there it says breathtakingly moving, outstanding. I agree with that review completely. By Maggie O'Farrell, and then Hilary Mantel's Wolf Hall. So please let me know if you've read any of those, and I'll be back again very soon with another video. Until then, take very good care of yourselves. Bye.